Parents, coaches, give us your attention for the next 10 minutes because we have found out parents are unknowingly killing their kids' confidence. If you're a parent that has been killing your kids' confidence, you probably don't realize it. Like a lot of the parents that we work with in PFP, we have found that there are 3 things that these parents are doing, most of them unknowingly. If you're knowingly doing it, you're probably not watching this. But a lot of parents are doing these 3 things. One perfect example of a parent who was killing their kids' confidence, and then we shared with them 2 of these things actually for this particular parent. 2 daughters, soccer players, phenomenal soccer players, top notch, probably going to go D1. This parent and her husband both were violating rule number 3 and rule number 2, not number 1, rule number 2 and rule number 3. Well, after we taught them these 2 things, they went out and they stopped doing these couple of things. Their daughters qualified for the something soccer national, whatever it was. They qualified for some national soccer tournament that they'd never qualified before. And these parents came to us and said, Andrew, Travis, coaches, we didn't realize that we were doing what we were doing, and you've completely changed our daughter's future. And as parents, we are no longer doing these dumb things anymore. And I'll explain more as we go through this. But that's my point. Most parents don't realize that these 3 things are not helping, but rather killing their kids' confidence. One of the youth truths is that this is happening today, and if you guys stick around for the next 10 minutes, number 3 especially is going to be key, so don't miss that one. You're going to learn something.
Yeah, and the big thing is no parent wants to purposely sabotage their kid's performance, and that's the reality of it. But the big thing is, just like an athlete on the field, sometimes you don't know the mistakes you're making. So this is going to really shed some light on some things that are going to help you understand what not to do, which is going to help elevate your kids' performance and lessen their stress.
Yep, so the first one of the things we find happening very often, and I get it now because I have a kid, is your kid fails, doesn't make the team, doesn't perform to the standards that maybe they had for themselves, somebody else outshines them, something happens, and a lot of parents unknowingly justify their kid's poor performance. And it might be justifiable. That's the scary part. When your kid fails to make a team, fails to level up, fails to live up to the expectations that they have for themselves or that you have for them, and you justify that failure by saying and giving them an excuse, giving them an out, you have just taken their mind away from the most important thing that their mind should be on, and that is their circle of control. We talk about the circle of control. And the number one thing that is within your athlete's circle of control is themselves. How they respond to coach benching them. How they respond to not making the team. When you start to justify their poor performance, their bad actions, whatever those things are, as much as a parent wants to do that, wants to protect your kid, you're helping them in the immediate, but you're setting them up for long-term failure. That's the key. So this is the number one thing I believe parents need to stop doing because it's killing their kids' confidence.
And let's face it, little Johnny has a tryout, and tryouts don't go as well as he wanted it to go, right? And he doesn't make that team. And all of a sudden, the holidays hit, and you're going to see all your family, and they're asking, is he playing basketball this year? And you start telling all the family, no, but he really should have made the team. Coach just didn't like him, right? Well, then little Johnny, he just figures, hey, it's not my fault. I don't need to change any of my actions. So the big thing is you're going to be able to control the controllables. And if that kid doesn't make the team, chances are it wasn't coach was just picking favorites. That kid can go out and work his butt off in the next 10 months and make sure next year he sets himself up for success. So the big thing is I see this a lot, especially when you start interacting with family and family friends. Parents say it in front of the kid. Let that kid take ownership and start controlling the controllables.
Yep, that's a great point. That's exactly what you need to do. Number 2, as parents, we've got goals for our kids. We want to see them shine. We want to see them be the best they can be. If you played sports in college or in high school, you probably have similar goals for your kid that you had for yourself. You want to see them succeed. You've heard this word used many times, but I don't think as many parents realize that they do it. They often talk about other parents who do this, but they don't realize they're doing it themselves, and that is living vicariously through your kids. Now, there's different forms of this. The uncommon form, the form that most people don't realize they're doing is when you are forcing goals upon your kid or you're encouraging them even to the point of maybe this isn't what they really want, maybe this isn't their destiny, maybe this isn't what they're meant to do, but you are so adamant about seeing them succeed at sports, this is very important, that they feel like if they don't pursue the collegiate scholarship, if they don't pursue sports at another level, for example, then they're not living up to what you want for them. Living vicariously through your kids could show up in many different ways. Not every kid is meant to be a collegiate athlete. I want to say that right off the bat. College sports are like a major commitment. I mean, a major commitment. And if a kid's not meant to do that, they're going to be very unhappy, and then they're going to end up quitting and not enjoying the process anyway. That's just one example, college sports.
Yeah, and I mean, a major source of anxiety these days is our actions aren't in line with our values and who we want to become, right? So if they're forced into this tunnel where their athletics is all they're doing and they're not truly passionate about it, that's going to lead them to being overstressed and anxious, okay? Parents, I know this one is really hard because for me, I grew up, I loved sports. And all of a sudden, my two brothers came along, and man, the second one came along, and he was 6'5", and he had the size to play any sport he wanted. And I was starting to do this one without me even knowing it, and I was hammering him, play football, play basketball, but it wasn't him. Mm-hmm. And I look at him now, and he's president of his fraternity, he was president of SGA. That's much more where his passions lie, and he's crushing it, and he's much more in line with who he's meant to be. So I know this one's hard because I saw it just with my little brother. So this one isn't easy. You got to identify and you got to back off. And for me, backing off is the best thing I could have done for me in his relationship.
One of the ways you know you're doing this, do you get more anxious and emotional about your kid's performance before the game or during the game than they get? That's one way. I see that happening with parents. I'm sorry?
That happens big time.
It does happen a lot of the times. Do you want greatness for them more than they want for themselves? See, I found that great leadership is when you inspire belief in a person and you inspire desire in a person to want greatness for themselves more than you want it for them. So if you are wanting it for them more than they want it for themselves, in some ways you are living vicariously through them, and we got to stop that because it's killing their confidence and long-term success. It's killing their confidence and long-term success. Short-sightedness is ultimately what's leading to the demise of our youth, I think. This third one, the triangle of communication, we'll call it, with a parent and an athlete. The first part of the triangle is pregame reminders are killing your athlete's performance. Pregame reminders are killing their performance and their confidence because before a game, you're reminding them of things that they should be doing. Hey, make sure you follow through today. Last week, you missed the shots. Hey, make sure the last 25 meters of the 100-meter dash, you kick it up a notch. And they're thinking to themselves like, duh, like I've only been practicing 20 hours a week for the past 12 years of my life. So it actually undermines your athlete's intelligence, and it undermines all the work they've been doing over the past however many years to prepare. I think this one is one that we need to take a look at and ask our athletes. Hey, do you feel like I'm giving you too much before a game?
Yeah, and a lot of times it's going to lead to frustration, right? If they're not seeking it and you're giving it, a lot of times they have enough going on in their head that they're trying to work through that they don't need that. Me personally, my stepdad was one of the leaders that I had when it came to sports, right? And before games, my routine was I called him. He didn't really tell me what I needed to do. He just kind of helped me settle my nerves. But I seeked that. If I didn't call him, he didn't call me. So for me, that was one way. That was my pregame routine. He didn't push anything on me like make sure you're hustling the ball or make sure you drop into the flats on this play. He just let me do my thing. And he was just there to really settle my nerves. So if they're not seeking it, don't go out of your way to push it on them.
What I would call that then is instead of pregame reminders, how about you seek to do this? Because more athletes need this more than reminders nowadays. They need to be relaxed and they need to be going poised and not overthinking. So that's a great point on that. Pre-game relaxation techniques for your athlete to get them to chill out. Second one, in-game yelling. In-game yelling. Your kids can hear it. They can hear it and it doesn't help them. It never does. Even if you yell at the coaches or the refs, same thing. I mean, this one, it doesn't need much explanation other than self-control. Like as parents, we have to hit the self-control button, hit the slow to speak button, whatever it is that you need to remind you to be quiet during games and just cheer. right? Cheering is awesome. Even going nuts, like if you want to go that route, like going nuts for it, that's great too. But as soon as you start pretending like you can influence performance from the bleachers, or you can influence a coach's decisions, or influence the referee's decisions, I mean, that's just wasted energy, and you're never going to be able to do it. Not from the stands.
Yeah, and there's a few things that really stick out to me on this one. The in-game yelling, if you're on the basketball court and you're yelling at the ref, again, you're justifying why that kid might not be performing well, right? That wasn't a foul. You can't control that. And not many times when a parent yells at a ref, it changes the call. You don't even see athletes or coaches being able to change the call. So the in-game yelling, it's not going to really help in that regard. And I look at baseball and softball. It's another one where the parents can get right on the backstop. They can get right behind home plate, and the kid hears that. And hitting a softball and hitting a baseball is hard enough. They don't need that excess pressure of a parent berating them. Let them dial in. Let them get into their zone. Don't take away from that focus. That's the last thing you need when you're trying to hit a baseball or a softball.
Right. Last one. Post-game conversations, post-game critiques. We're talking parents in particular. There's a 10-minute rule. It is an unspoken, universal 10-minute rule on the car ride home, or if your athlete drives themselves, once they get home for dinner that night, no game talk. Like, I would recommend as a leader, even if your athlete is trying to talk about the game that night, teach them the valuable lesson of leaving work at work. Right? Let's just focus on the family. Let's focus on how did today go? How was school today? What are we going to do? What are we doing this coming weekend? Let's talk about that kind of stuff, because it's unhealthy to stay fixated on what happened in the game and what do I need to do to improve. I think that's unhealthy for anybody to focus only on athletics. Let's practice the art of having balance in our lives. And I think that some of these other ones, like some of the other problems like anxiety before sports events, nervousness, all those things will start to die down a little bit if we can compartmentalize sports and keep them at the field as best as possible.
Yeah, and there's been some crazy things with post-game conversations. Just understand, if your kid had a bad game, they don't want to hear about the things they did wrong that night, right? They want to check it, and the coaches are going to help them fix the things they need to fix. So they don't need to be hearing that night. Guys, my challenge for you guys, look at this stuff and just have a simple conversation with your athlete tonight, right? I can guarantee you would not intentionally try to sabotage their performance. So see how they feel, right? Because their perception is reality. And if there's some things you guys can tweak to help unlock a little higher performance and a little more enjoyment in sports, that's what it's about, okay? Be coachable and listen to what they have to say. But the one thing is, when you seek feedback, don't let that ego creep in, because it's really easy to get mad and start deflecting on things. If your kid really gives you feedback, listen and try to make the changes.
Cool. Guys, thanks for watching this. Rewatch this one again. Take action on things you need to take action on. We'll see you next week for another Youth Truth.
Have a happy Thanksgiving.